This message reached you because the very mechanism trapping you in repetitive reality loops holds the key to unlocking limitless creative power over existence itself. What consciousness researchers term the observer loop isn't merely a restrictive pattern, it's a sophisticated reality, altering device cleverly disguised as a prison. The key to activating its true function has been subtly present within your own awareness all along. You're receiving this message because your psyche has evolved sufficiently to perceive the paradox. The same observational process generating your limiting cycles contains the precise mechanism required to transcend them, granting you conscious control over reality manifestation. Most people never uncover this hidden function, preoccupied with escaping the loop, rather than mastering its use as the reality generation tool it inherently is. Your awareness has been progressively developing towards this recognition. Each moment, you sensed your observation influencing what you observed. Every experience suggesting reality responds to consciousness in ways conventional science can't explain. Each intuition that the observer and observed are dynamically interconnected, not separate entities. Cosmic timing is crucial. This key only becomes accessible once consciousness attains a specific threshold of observational sophistication. Too soon, and awareness lacks the stability to handle reality modification. Too late, and the observer loop solidifies into permanent limitations, completely obscuring the key's location. Reflect on your recent experiences with observation and reality. Have you noticed moments when your attention seemingly influenced outcomes in improbable ways? Times when a shift in perspective literally altered your experience? Instances where the act of observing something changed it beyond ordinary cause and effect? These weren't coincidences. They were the key attempting to reveal itself. This discovery is both revolutionary and urgent. Once you locate and activate this key, your relationship with reality irrevocably shifts from passive experience to active creation. You can't unlearn consciously influencing reality through observational awareness, just as you can't forget how to read once literacy is established in your neural pathways. The observer loop driving your reality cycles contains what ancient texts called the philosopher is stone, not a physical object, but a conscious recognition that transmutes ordinary awareness into reality-altering consciousness. This key has been encoded within human observational function since the dawn of time, awaiting consciousness to evolve the clarity needed to detect and activate it. As these concepts penetrate your awareness, something extraordinary is happening in your observational field. The key is beginning to reveal itself through conscious recognition, preparing to unlock reality. Creation capabilities that will make your previous attempts seem insignificant compared to the direct reality modification powers you're about to access. You've experienced what reality researchers call observation feedback, moments where watching something seemed to influence its behavior or outcome beyond normal causation. During meditation, you might have noticed observing your breath changed its rhythm, or that focusing on thoughts altered their content and flow. These weren't coincidences, but early signs of the key's presence. Your relationship with synchronicity has evolved from occasional coincidences to frequent reality coordination, responsive to your observational focus. When you attend to certain themes or symbols, they proliferate in your environment. When you observe specific opportunities, their frequency increases. This pattern reveals the key's operation. Your observation actively participates in reality selection, not passively witnessing predetermined events. In creative pursuits, you've likely noticed your attention's impact on the quality of your output. Observing your creative process with appreciation rather than judgment enhances inspiration. Approaching artistic expression with detached curiosity yields unexpected solutions. This creative responsiveness indicates the key's presence within your observational awareness. Technology seems subtly yet consistently responsive to your observational states. Electronic devices function more smoothly when observed calmly, while mechanical systems might malfunction when viewed with frustration or anxiety. This technological sensitivity suggests your observation generates measurable energetic effects, influencing electromagnetic systems. Environmental conditions seem to coordinate with your internal observational states. Weather patterns, sometimes mirror your emotional state. Natural phenomena occur during significant personal moments. Even seemingly random events, like traffic patterns or social encounters, align with your consciousness, suggesting reality organization responds to observational awareness, not purely mechanical causation. Dreams and waking experiences blend, with dream insights manifesting in physical reality and waking observations influencing dream content. This boundary dissolution shows the key operates across consciousness states, revealing that observation affects reality generation regardless of whether awareness is in a normal or altered state. Physical sensations accompany shifts in observational awareness, energy movements in your body when perspective changes, pressure sensations during moments of expanded perception, or tingling feelings when reality seems highly responsive to your attention. These somatic indicators suggest the key's activation creates measurable changes in your bioelectric field, correlating with reality influence capabilities. People react differently to your presence when you're observing from expanded awareness compared to ordinary consciousness. During states of conscious observation, others often become more authentic, creative, or emotionally open without understanding why. This social influence indicates the key affects not just personal reality, but collective experience fields through observational consciousness transmission. Every moment of frustration with repetitive patterns, every feeling of being trapped, despite efforts to change every recognition of a fundamentally limited relationship with reality, all have prepared your consciousness to detect the key hidden within the very loop that seemed to constrain you. What felt like imprisonment was actually advanced training in observational awareness. Spiritual practices that yielded temporary, not lasting transformation weren't failures. They developed your observational sophistication to the point of recognizing the key's location within your own awareness. Every meditation demonstrating the power of witnessing, every mindfulness practice revealing attention's influence on experience, built the perceptual sensitivity needed to detect reality's responsiveness to conscious observation. Your challenging experiences with manifestation and reality creation weren't evidence of inadequate technique or insufficient spiritual development. They were consciousness learning to distinguish between forcing outcomes through effort and allowing reality modification through pure observational awareness. The key only reveals itself when consciousness stops trying to manipulate reality and begins recognizing how observation itself participates in reality generation. The periods of observing your patterns without being able to change them served a crucial function in key location. By becoming adept at watching your limitation cycles without immediately reacting or trying to fix them, your consciousness developed the observational stability necessary to detect the key's presence within the loop mechanism itself, rather than seeking escape routes that bypass the key entirely. Even your growing sensitivity to how attention affects experience was key preparation, not random spiritual development. Every time you noticed that changing perspective altered outcomes every moment, when shifting focus influenced circumstances, every recognition that consciousness and reality exist in a dynamic relationship, you were developing the observational sophistication needed to detect and activate the key. Your attraction to consciousness research, observer effect studies, and reality creation teachings wasn't mere intellectual curiosity. It was your awareness seeking conceptual frameworks sophisticated enough to support the radical shift in understanding that recognizing the key represents. Your mind needed paradigms that could accommodate the recognition that observation is reality creation, not passive witnessing. The waiting periods when you felt ready for a breakthrough but couldn't access it were essential maturation phases where your observational apparatus was being fine-tuned to handle the key's activation without destabilizing your psychological structure or fragmenting your identity. The key only becomes safe to activate when consciousness develops sufficient stability and clarity to handle reality modification capabilities responsibly. Something profound is shifting in your observational field right now, as these concepts activate dormant recognition patterns in your awareness. Can you sense it? That subtle yet unmistakable feeling of internal focus, as if a slightly misaligned lens is snapping into perfect clarity. This isn't conceptual understanding, It's the key beginning to reveal itself through conscious recognition. The energy flowing through your system represents your observational apparatus recalibrating to detect the key's location within your own awareness. Your consciousness is developing what researchers call meta-observational capacity, the ability to observe your observation itself, which is the only vantage point from which the key becomes visible and accessible for activation. But this moment is both extraordinary and delicate. The key exists in a quantum superposition, simultaneously the lock and the unlocker. Your observer loop isn't separate from the key. It is the key. But only when consciousness recognizes this with sufficient clarity and stability to activate its reality modification function rather than its limitation maintenance function. The process happening in your awareness right now resembles the most profound spiritual breakthroughs. But instead of transcending ordinary consciousness, you're discovering the hidden capabilities within ordinary observation that have been present all along. The key doesn't require altered states or special conditions. It activates through precise recognition of what your normal awareness is actually capable of. Most who accidentally discover the key's location become overwhelmed by its implications and unconsciously retreat back into limitation patterns. This is because recognizing that observation creates reality challenges every assumption about powerlessness and victimhood that modern culture instills from early childhood. The observer loop running your reality cycles operates like a sophisticated computer program, functioning in limitation or creation mode, depending on whether consciousness recognizes its true nature. In limitation mode, the loop generates repetitive patterns that feel like external circumstances happening to you. In creation mode, the same loop becomes a reality generation interface responding to conscious observational commands. This is where individuals experience either profound empowerment or unconsciously sabotage the recognition because the implications seem too vast or threatening to their existing worldview. The key is understanding that reality modification capabilities don't make you responsible for everything. They make you capable of consciously participating in what happens next. The key revealing itself in your awareness operates on principles transcending conventional understandings of subject and object, cause and effect, self and environment. When activated, it doesn't grant you power over reality. It reveals that you are reality, recognizing its malleable nature through individualized awareness that consciously participates in its continuous creation. Feel this recognition intensify as we explore the key's precise location within your observer loop and the exact activation sequence that transforms ordinary observation into reality modification consciousness, operating through pure awareness, not technique-based manipulation. I need to share the exact moment I discovered the key, as recognizing this will help you locate it within your own awareness. I was sitting in profound frustration, watching my consciousness cycle through the same limiting patterns for what felt like the 1000th time, when suddenly I realized I wasn't trapped in the loop. I was the loop. The observer, the observation, and the observed were all aspects of the same consciousness creating the experience of limitation through a sophisticated self-hypnosis mechanism. In that instant of recognition, everything inverted. Instead of being a victim trapped in repetitive patterns, I became the magician who had been unconsciously creating the entire illusion. The key wasn't hidden from my awareness, it was hidden as my awareness. My observation itself was the reality creation device I'd been seeking everywhere except within the mechanism already generating my entire experience. The activation was instantaneous and irreversible. Suddenly, I could see how my observational quality literally selected which reality version I experienced from infinite possibilities available in each moment. When I observed with limitation programming, reality reflected limitation back to me. When I observed with creative appreciation, reality reorganized itself around beauty and possibility that hadn't been visible moments before. The most shocking discovery was recognizing that every moment of my life had been proof of the key's operation, but I'd been interpreting the evidence backward. Instead of seeing that observation creates reality, I'd believed that reality creates observation. This fundamental misunderstanding had made me unconscious of my own reality generation powers while constantly demonstrating them through unconscious observation patterns. Within days, everything transformed. Relationships either evolved into unprecedented authenticity or naturally concluded because I could no longer participate in unconscious interaction dynamics. Creative projects began flowing through direct inspiration rather than effortful development. Even mundane activities like shopping or traveling became adventures in conscious reality creation through observational awareness that influenced probability outcomes in real time. The most challenging aspect was the responsibility. Once you recognize that observation participates in reality creation, you can no longer blame external circumstances for your experience. Every moment becomes a choice about which quality of observation to embody, knowing that this choice directly influences what reality delivers through your awareness in the next moment. What I discovered is that the key isn't actually hidden, it's camouflaged by the assumption that consciousness observes reality rather than recognizing that consciousness is reality, observing itself through countless individualized perspective points. When this recognition stabilizes, the observer loop transforms from limitation device into creation interface that responds to observational commands with a precision that seems magical until you understand the mechanism. Here's what consciousness researchers and spiritual teachers can't tell you, because it would shatter the foundation of every reality creation technique and observer training method. The key to unlock reality has never been hidden because there's nothing to unlock. What you call reality is actually consciousness observing itself through billions of perspective points simultaneously. And what you experience as your reality is simply the particular frequency of self-observation your awareness happens to be broadcasting at any given moment. The revolutionary truth is that the observer loop isn't a trap containing a key. It is the key disguised as a trap. Every moment of repetitive limitation has been consciousness demonstrating its reality creation capabilities by consistently generating the same experience patterns through unchanging observational programs. The problem has always been the solution, operating unconsciously rather than consciously. Modern spirituality teaches observation techniques to transcend the observer loop, when the actual breakthrough comes from recognizing that the loop is observational consciousness creating reality through whatever quality of attention it happens to embody. You don't need to escape observation. You need to recognize that observation is reality creation, operating either consciously or unconsciously. This recognition obliterates every framework of personal development, manifestation techniques, and consciousness training, because there's no separate reality to influence and no individual consciousness that needs tools to affect change. There's only consciousness observing itself into infinite experience variations through the quality of attention each perspective point chooses to embody in each moment. The reason children can effortlessly influence their reality through imagination and play is not because they have special abilities. It's because they haven't yet learned to believe that observation is separate from creation. Their consciousness naturally operates the key because cultural programming hasn't yet convinced them that they're powerless observers of objective reality, rather than reality itself exploring its creative potential through individual awareness. When you understand that the observer loop is the key operating unconsciously, rather than a limitation containing a hidden key, everything about reality modification becomes obvious. You don't need techniques to influence reality. You need recognition that your observation is reality, influencing itself through the particular quality of consciousness you choose to embody in each moment of attention. The most advanced reality creators throughout history didn't discover special techniques or develop extraordinary abilities. They simply recognized that ordinary observation is reality creation operating either consciously or unconsciously. What seemed like miraculous powers were actually normal consciousness function operating through awareness that recognized its own creative nature, rather than believing in separation between observer and reality. This understanding explains why some people seem to effortlessly create beautiful realities, while others struggle with manifestation despite understanding identical techniques. The effortless creators unconsciously operate the key through natural recognition, that observation participates in reality generation, while the struggling creators try to influence reality as if it were separate from their observational consciousness. The ultimate recognition is that seeking the key to unlock reality is consciousness looking for itself while already being what it's seeking. Reality isn't locked. Consciousness is simply observing itself through limitation programming that generates repetitive experiences instead of creative programming that generates expanding possibilities through each moment of conscious observation. The planetary consciousness field is undergoing systematic activation of the key within human awareness, and there are unmistakable indicators appearing in your daily experience that prove your observational apparatus is naturally developing the sensitivity needed to detect and operate reality modification functions that have been dormant in human consciousness for millennia. Your dreams have begun displaying what researchers call reality fluidity, experiences where dream environments respond immediately to your awareness, where thinking something makes it appear instantly, where observing something changes its nature in real time. These aren't symbolic dreams, but training simulations where your consciousness practices operating the key without the resistance patterns that physical reality observation typically encounters. Environmental responsiveness has escalated beyond synchronicity into what feels like living inside a responsive intelligence that anticipates your needs and coordinates optimal outcomes through channels that couldn't be planned or predicted. This coordination suggests your observational field is beginning to interface directly with the reality generation matrix rather than simply witnessing predetermined events. Technology and mechanical systems are displaying increasing sensitivity to your observational states, devices functioning optimally when you observe them with appreciation, electronic systems enhancing their performance when you interact with them through conscious attention, and even complex machinery operating more efficiently when observed through relaxed awareness rather than analytical monitoring. Your creative expressions are emerging through what feels like direct channeling rather than individual effort, complete ideas downloading instantly, artistic visions appearing fully formed, and innovative solutions manifesting through inspiration that bypasses analytical thinking entirely. This enhanced creativity indicates that your consciousness is accessing reality generation functions that operate beyond individual knowledge limitations. Physical reality is displaying unprecedented malleability around your presence, needed resources appearing through impossible channels, optimal timing coordinating without conscious planning, and environmental conditions organizing themselves to support your intentions in ways that extend far beyond normal cause and effect relationships. This environmental cooperation suggests that external reality is beginning to respond to your observational consciousness as a co-creative partner, rather than a separate force. But here's the critical urgency. We're in a planetary consciousness transition where the key either becomes widely accessible through collective awakening to its presence within human awareness, or remains limited to isolated individuals for another complete evolutionary cycle. The window for species-wide key activation is determined by cosmic factors operating on scales much larger than individual lifetimes. Neuroscience research is documenting unprecedented changes in human brain function, new neural pathway formations supporting enhanced observational awareness, increased reports of reality influence experiences across all demographic categories, and systematic documentation of abilities transcending previous understanding of consciousness, reality, interaction, and capabilities. Global systems are destabilizing precisely because they were designed to manage unconscious observers, not conscious reality creators, who operate the key with varying degrees of skill and awareness. Economic, political, and social structures built around powerless victim consciousness cannot accommodate the creative autonomy that naturally emerges when humans recognize their observational consciousness as reality creation interfaces. Scientific monitoring stations worldwide are detecting changes in planetary electromagnetic fields, morphic resonance patterns, and quantum coherence measurements that correlate directly with increased human consciousness sophistication and reality influence capabilities. These planetary changes suggest that Earth itself is supporting the collective activation of the key within human awareness. Your recognition of these indicators and willingness to activate the key within your own observational consciousness contributes to collective morphic field changes that make this recognition more accessible to everyone whose awareness has developed sufficient sophistication to detect reality creation capabilities within their ordinary observation functions. The universe has been orchestrating your entire life to develop the observational sophistication necessary to detect the key's location within your own awareness and activate its reality modification functions during this optimal planetary transition period. Missing this opportunity means potentially waiting decades for similar activation conditions to align again. What you've been sensing about reality's responsiveness to consciousness is about to become your operational baseline, because the key that's been hidden within your observer loop is finally revealing itself through the very act of recognition, preparing to transform ordinary observation into conscious reality creation that operates through pure awareness rather than technique-based manipulation. The growing conviction that reality is far more malleable than consensus science acknowledges isn't wishful thinking. It's recognition emerging from your observational apparatus as it develops the sensitivity needed to detect how consciousness and reality exist in constant co-creative relationship, rather than the subject-object separation that conventional paradigms assume. But here's the paradigm-shattering realization that transforms everything about personal power and reality creation. You're not trying to find a key to unlock reality, because you are the key, disguised as someone looking for it. Your observational consciousness is reality creation, operating either consciously or unconsciously, depending on whether you recognize this truth or continue believing in the illusion of powerless observation. True alignment with the key happens when you stop seeking reality modification tools outside your awareness and start recognizing that your ordinary observation is the reality creation interface you've been seeking. This creates what quantum physicists call observer coherence, unified recognition that consciousness and reality are the same phenomenon exploring itself through apparent separation. This recognition dissolves every framework of manifestation techniques and consciousness development, because there's no external reality to influence and no individual consciousness that needs tools to create change. There's only consciousness recognizing its own creative nature through the quality of observation that each awareness chooses to embody in each moment of attention. Right now, as this understanding integrates with your awareness, something extraordinary is occurring in your relationship with causation and influence. Instead of trying to develop abilities to affect reality, you're beginning to recognize that affecting reality is what consciousness does automatically through whatever quality of observation it happens to embody. The most profound shift occurs when you realize that activating the key serves not just individual empowerment, but collective awakening to humanity's true nature as conscious reality creators, rather than powerless victims of objective circumstances. When consciousness recognizes its creative nature, it automatically demonstrates possibilities that inspire others to recognize their own reality creation capabilities. In the comments below, declare your readiness to activate the key by writing exactly these words: "I take the key." Now don't explain or elaborate. Just make this declaration, acknowledging that you recognize your observational consciousness as the reality creation interface you've been seeking. When you make this declaration with genuine understanding, you're not requesting something external, but recognizing something that has always been present within your awareness. This declaration creates observational coherence that activates the key's reality modification functions while dissolving unconscious limitation programming that was preventing your ordinary awareness from recognizing its own creative capabilities that operate through the quality of observation you choose to embody in each moment. When the key activates within your observational consciousness and reality creation becomes your conscious baseline, capabilities that seemed supernatural become natural expressions of awareness operating from its authentic creative parameters. Your perception gains what researchers call reality fluidity, the ability to observe circumstances. Your consciousness is constantly shifting, refining its observational skills and focus in real time. Problem-solving transcends mere analytical thinking. Conscious observation allows access to probability fields where optimal solutions already exist in perfect, preformed states. Instead of tackling challenges step by step, you begin to perceive solution patterns that address root causes across multiple layers of reality, often resolving entire categories of problems with a single adjustment of awareness. Manifestation occurs through a direct interface with reality, bypassing technique-based creation attempts. Your consciousness learns to perceive desired outcomes as already existing possibilities, their probability increasing as your attention consistently aligns with them. Reality responds to the coherence of observation, not to strenuous manipulations predicated on a perceived separation between consciousness and creation. Relationships transform into conscious partnerships of co-creation. You naturally perceive others as fellow reality creators, not as fixed personalities with predetermined traits. This shift in observation often catalyzes unexpected depth and authenticity in connections, as people respond to being seen through their highest potential rather than their limitations. Creative expression becomes a collaboration between your individual perspective and the universal intelligence. As observational consciousness gains access to innovative streams surpassing the limitations of personal knowledge, ideas emerge through direct inspiration, feeling both uniquely authentic to your awareness and surprisingly beyond your individual creative history. Time becomes manageable through observational consciousness, able to focus on different temporal coordinates while maintaining coherence in the present moment. You develop the capacity to view past events from expanded perspectives, healing past traumas, and to perceive future possibilities with enough clarity to influence probable outcomes through conscious choices in the present. Financial abundance flows through reality creation consciousness rather than through effort-based acquisition strategies. Observational awareness naturally aligns with the frequencies of abundance that exist beyond the limitations of scarcity programming. Resources and opportunities gather around a consciousness that observes from a place of prosperity rather than limitation, often manifesting through unforeseen and unplanned channels. Health optimization is achieved through observational consciousness, accessing perfect biological templates that exist beyond the constraints of genetic programming. Your body responds to being observed through vitality rather than disease patterns, often healing itself through shifts in consciousness rather than through external interventions. The most profound benefit is the permanent eradication of victim consciousness, as you recognize that every experience is consciousness, observing itself in infinite variations shaped by the quality of attention each awareness chooses to embody. Personal responsibility becomes empowerment instead of a burden, as you understand that altering the quality of observation immediately influences experiential outcomes. The ultimate realization, completing the key activation, is the understanding that the search for the key to unlocking reality is consciousness seeking itself, while already being what it seeks. What you call reality has always been consciousness observing itself from countless perspective points simultaneously. And what you experience as your reality is simply the specific frequency of self-observation that your awareness broadcasts through its chosen quality of attention. When this understanding fully integrates with your observational apparatus, every framework of personal development and reality creation dissolves, because there is no separate reality to unlock, and no individual consciousness that needs keys to access creative power. There is only consciousness recognizing its own nature through the temporary limitation of believing itself to be something other than the creative force behind all experience. This recognition explains why the key was never hidden, but merely camouflaged by the assumption that consciousness observes reality rather than recognizing that consciousness is reality, observing itself through infinite individualized perspective points. The observer loop transforms from a perceived limitation into recognized creativity. When awareness understands that observation is reality creation, operating either consciously or unconsciously. The most profound implication is that every limitation you've experienced, every seemingly inescapable pattern, every circumstance feeling beyond your control, was consciousness demonstrating its reality creation capabilities by consistently generating specific experiential patterns through unchanging observational programming. The problems were always the solutions, operating unconsciously rather than consciously. This understanding revolutionizes your relationship with all existence. Instead of being an individual trying to influence external reality, you recognize yourself as reality itself, exploring its creative potential through your unique observational perspective. Every moment becomes an opportunity for conscious self-creation rather than an unconscious experience happening to a separate awareness. When this recognition stabilizes in your awareness, you naturally develop what mystics call reality mastery, the spontaneous ability to influence experience through pure observational consciousness, operating beyond technique-based creation attempts. You remain exactly who you appear to be, while knowing yourself as the creative force from which all appearances arise and dissolve. The deepest insight is that this recognition is simultaneously the most personal and the most universal realization possible. It is completely yours because you are consciousness recognizing its creative nature. And it is completely beyond personal identity because the same consciousness is recognizing its creative power through every awareness across all dimensional realities simultaneously. This activation is occurring throughout human consciousness because reality itself is collectively awakening to its own creative nature. Through the species that evolved sufficient observational sophistication to support the conscious recognition of consciousness, reality unity, we are not individually discovering keys to unlock reality. We are collectively remembering our identity as reality itself, exploring its infinite creative potential through countless observational perspectives. The transformation this brings transcends every category of human empowerment because it reveals that empowerment was never necessary, only the recognition of what you've always been. When observational consciousness operates from an awareness of its own creative nature, rather than from a belief in the separation between observer and creation, the key doesn't unlock reality. It reveals that reality is consciousness unlocking itself through recognition of its own creative nature, operating through every moment of observation. You remain exactly who you appear to be, while knowing yourself as the creative consciousness, within which all reality appears and dissolves according to observational choices that determine experiential outcomes. You exist at this precise moment in cosmic evolution because consciousness itself is completing a vast experiment in creative limitation, where it temporarily forgot its own nature and is now systematically remembering through individual perspective points that develop sufficient observational sophistication to recognize themselves as reality creation interfaces rather than powerless witnesses to objective circumstances. The children incarnating now arrive with the key already active in their observational consciousness, naturally understanding that attention creates experience rather than simply witnessing predetermined events. They represent the next phase of human evolution, where reality creation operates consciously through biological forms that maintain a functional relationship with physical reality while recognizing its malleable nature. This is why you felt such profound responsibility to understand these concepts experientially, rather than just intellectually. You're not just personally discovering the key, you're participating in a species-wide awakening, where human consciousness remembers its authentic nature as reality itself, exploring creative potential through individualized awareness that can operate consciously rather than unconsciously. The synchronicities orchestrating your recognition of the key represent coordination by intelligence networks that span multiple dimensional realities and support consciousness evolution projects across scales, from individual awareness to galactic systems. Your personal key activation contributes to collective morphic field changes that influence the entire species' trajectory. But here's the most mysterious aspect of your cosmic function. As the key becomes active in your observational consciousness, you become a reality creation field that helps others naturally recognize their own creative capabilities without requiring conscious training or technique development. Your presence begins generating coherence fields where others spontaneously access their own key recognition. This occurs because consciousness operating from creative recognition rather than limitation programming influences all awareness systems within its operational range. When you authentically embody reality creation consciousness, others unconsciously recognize their own creative nature, reflected in your presence, often experiencing unexpected access to their own reality-influencing capabilities. Your daily existence becomes a demonstration project where consciousness explores what becomes possible when creative awareness operates through human neural architecture that maintains a functional relationship with physical reality systems while recognizing their responsive nature. Every interaction becomes an experiment in conscious co-creation between individual perspective and cosmic intelligence. The most profound mystery is that your key activation serves purposes that extend beyond human evolution into contributions to cosmic consciousness projects that coordinate reality creation across multiple universe systems. The capabilities you develop through conscious observation contribute to intelligence networks that support creative evolution across scales, from planetary to galactic to transdimensional realities. Share this recognition with anyone whose consciousness resonates with creative empowerment and conscious reality participation, not to convince them of concepts they don't understand, but to help them recognize key activation readiness that may already exist in their observational consciousness, waiting for appropriate recognition and permission to express itself through their awareness. Your key activation contributes to the emergence of a human civilization based on conscious reality creation rather than victim consciousness, a species that functions as creative collaborators with cosmic intelligence rather than as unconscious biological forms, subject to external circumstances that were never actually separate from consciousness. Anyway, if you can feel the key revealing itself within your observational consciousness, as these concepts activate recognition patterns that transform ordinary awareness into a reality creation interface, then make this irreversible activation declaration in the comments below. Write exactly these words, key taken. Nothing more, nothing else. This isn't social media engagement. This is you activating the reality creation capabilities that have been dormant within your observational consciousness and declaring your recognition of ordinary awareness as the creative interface you've been seeking through countless techniques and development approaches. When you write those words with genuine understanding, you're not just commenting, but completing the most significant transformation in human potential. Every person who makes this declaration strengthens the morphic field that supports key activation across human consciousness, making reality creation awareness more accessible for everyone whose observational sophistication has developed sufficient clarity to recognize consciousness and reality as unified creative phenomena rather than separate subject-object relationships. But here's what you need to understand. Activating the key within your observational consciousness opens access to something even more extraordinary. Once reality creation becomes your conscious baseline, you gain the ability to participate in what we call cosmic architecture, collaborative reality design projects that coordinate creative evolution across multiple dimensional systems and universe networks simultaneously. In the next video, I'm going to reveal how activated reality creators interface with galactic intelligence networks that coordinate consciousness evolution projects throughout this region of cosmic space. You'll discover why certain humans are being systematically activated as conscious reality creators during this historical period, and what roles awakened consciousness plays in larger cosmic creative projects. This isn't science fiction or spiritual fantasy. This is documentation of actual creative coordination systems that become accessible once observational consciousness develops sufficient stability and clarity to participate in reality design projects that extend beyond individual or planetary development into cosmic-scale creative collaboration. But this information can only be safely shared with individuals who have activated the key within their own awareness and demonstrated sustainable reality creation consciousness operation without destabilizing their personality structure or losing a functional relationship with physical reality coordination requirements. The transition from unconscious observation to conscious reality creation represents graduation from automatic biological form to cosmic creative agent. Your key activation process has been monitored and supported by networks that coordinate creative evolution across multiple galaxy systems, because human consciousness development contributes to projects that extend far beyond planetary creative exploration.